Daf Mem Vav, second line from the top of the Yoma. So the Gemara was discussing the fires that there are on the Mizbeach. According to Rab Meir, there were 4 different fires every single day on the Mizbeach, and then a 5th one on Yom Kippur. One was the main one in the middle for the Karbanos, then there was one on the side for the Ketayres, then there was another fire to be there in case the fire in the middle extinguishes, so they use it to relight it. And then there was a 4th fire that was used for the leftover pieces from the Karbanos that weren't burnt from the night before, so they would, the next morning, they would put it over there in that fire to burn there. So the Gemara here brings a statement from Bar Kapara about this, about Rab Meir's opinion. Amar Rabbi Laza Mishum Bar Kapara. He said in the name of Bar Kapara, Oime Hoy Rab Meir. Rab Meir would say, Eivare Oyla Shani Taisru, when you have pieces of the carbon oila, so this is probably the carbon tamid from the afternoon that was burnt on the Mizbeach at night. So if there's leftovers of it that didn't get burnt in the morning, so then you make a separate, a 4th maracha, and you organize, you put those pieces over there in that 4th fire. And this is even on a Shabbos. Even if there's leftovers on a Shabbos, you do it then as well. So the Gemara now asks, why did Bar Kapara have to say this? Mai kamashmala. What was he teaching that we don't know from what it said in the Mishnah? Tanina, we learned already in the Mishnah. What does it say? B'chol yoim hayusham arba marachas. In the Mishnah it said that every day there were 4 marachas on the Mizbeach, and then you added a 5th one on Yom Kippur. So what is the chiddush that Bar Kapara was saying over here? So the Gemara answers, Amar Rab Ovin, loy nitzracha. The main chiddush that he was saying when he said Eivari oyla shani taisru, he was speaking about a specific case. Ella lupsulin. He's talking about even pieces of a carbon that were actually puzzle. So as Rashi brings, the halacha of puzzle or karbanis is you're not allowed to bring it onto the Mizbeach. But if it was brought onto the Mizbeach, it stays on the Mizbeach. Rashi brings it, Olu lo yerdu. Once it was brought on the Mizbeach, it remains there and has to be burnt on the Mizbeach. So the chiddush of Rab Bar Kapara is that according to Rab Meir, even those puzzle pieces that were brought on the Mizbeach, and once it's there, it has to remain there, and it didn't get burnt during the night, so you make a separate fire for it to burn it the next morning. Now the Gemara, even on Shabbos, which the Gemara is going to address in a minute. Here the Gemara is not focusing on the Shabbos aspect, but that the Gemara will address in a second. But now the Gemara qualifies this and says, "V'dafke shemashla behena or," but that's only if the fire already began burning these pieces. Avaloi mashla behena or, but if they were sitting there in the Mizbeach at night and the fire didn't grab hold of them at all. So then they don't become part of the karbanos on the Mizbeach, and then you don't make a special fire for them the next morning. You take it all from the Mizbeach. Rashi says the pshat in this is that once the fire starts burning it, so then it becomes lachmai shel Mizbeach. It becomes like the bread, the food of the Mizbeach. So therefore you don't take it down. Even if it was l'chatchila puzzle, but it remains in the Mizbeach, and now it becomes the bread of the Mizbeach, so you have to make a special fire for it to continue to burn it on the Mizbeach.
Just for the psulim, a special fire?
No, for anything, but the chiddush is even the psulim, even the things that are puzzle also. But if it's not, if the fire did not start burning it at all, so then the psulim, according to this version of the Gemara, so those pieces that were puzzle, you have to take off. Now the Gemara says another version. Ikadamri, others say, Echad k'shedin ve'echad psulin. This qualification that we just said, that you continue burning it the next morning in a special fire, only if it was started burning already. So this is true whether it's k'shedin, whether it's the pieces of a carbon that were left over of kosher carbon. It's a good carbon. Ve'echad psulin, even from a puzzle carbon. If the fire started burning it, so then you have to continue using it on the Mizbeach and make another fire for it. And if not, then you don't have to continue burning it on the Mizbeach, you just take it off. So according to this version, this is not only regarding psulim, but even regarding kshedin. Now, you have to take it off the Mizbeach. No, it goes to the psuli HaMikdash and you just take it off the Mizbeach. You don't burn it anywhere else, as far as I know. Now the Gemara explains the other detail that Bar Kapara said, Va'afilu b'Shabbos, that this that you make a separate maracha for these leftovers to be burnt, this is even Shabbos morning. So the Gemara asks on this, again, is there a chiddush in this? What was Bar Kapara saying? Tanina, didn't we learn this in the Mishnah? Ve'hayoim, and today, on Yom Kippur, chamesh, there are 5 fires. So you see that even on Yom Kippur, that 4th fire is there. So Yom Kippur is the same as Shabbos. So we know b'chlal, of course, you don't make a fire on Shabbos, but in the Beis Hamikdash, you're allowed to make the fire for the karbanis. The Gemara learns it out from what it says regarding the fire. You're not allowed to make a fire in all your dwellings, but in the Beis Hamikdash you make a fire for the karbanis. Now, does that include even making this fire for the leftover limbs as well? So it said in the Mishnah that you can make that fire on Yom Kippur. So if you can make it on Yom Kippur, why not on Shabbos? So what is the chiddush here of Bar Kapara more than what it says in the Mishnah? Rav Acha bar Yaakov says, no, there is a chiddush here, because from the Mishnah there's no raya. It's terich. I would think to say that maybe the pshat in the Mishnah is as follows. Hani mili, when is the Mishnah saying that from the leftovers, even Yom Kippur morning, you have that fourth fire there? Only if Yom Kippur would come out right after Shabbos and Sunday. Because then the halacha is Chelvei Shabbos krevin b'Yom Kippurim. The fats of the karbonis of Shabbos could be brought on Yom Kippur. This is a Gemara in Shabbos that's learned out from Sukkim. There's machlokes there actually about it. I think it's Rabbi Akiva. According to Rabbi Akiva, he says that there's a special halacha of Yom Kippur being on Sunday right after Shabbos, that you could burn the leftovers from Shabbos on Yom Kippur. So maybe in our Mishnah, when it said according to Rabbi Meir that there's a fourth fire there that you can burn the leftovers, it's only if Yom Kippur is on a Sunday. Avol, the what? No, not today, but in the time of the Beis Hamikdash when it was done, yeah. Avol be'emtza Shabbos, but if it's in the middle of the week, any other day in the week, and now you have leftovers of the karbanis of the day before Yom Kippur, on Yom Kippur morning, loy, maybe I would say you can't. And the same thing also regarding Shabbos. The leftovers of Friday, a weekday. The leftovers from a Friday for Shabbos, or leftovers, let's say, from a Tuesday to Wednesday, if Wednesday is Yom Kippur. Maybe then you're not allowed to make a special fire for the leftovers of a weekday carbon from the day before. You could only make a fire on Shabbos for the Shabbos carbon, not from the day before, which is a weekday carbon. So I would think that you're not supposed to make the fire then, an extra fire for this. Kamash Mulan, that was the chiddush of Bar Kapara, Vafil b'Shabbos, that you could make this fourth fire for the leftover pieces from the day before, which was a weekday. So Marave, but Rava didn't like this answer. Rava says, no, this itself you see from the Mishnah itself. Man hai, who gave this answer? Dulechayish lekimche. He doesn't know how to grind this flour, meaning he's the person grinds the flour and it doesn't come out to be clean and good quality. So whoever said this answer also wasn't paying attention to what he was saying. It says in the Mishnah, every single day there were four fires. So if it says every single day, that means every day. It doesn't matter what day it was and when it comes out. He was saying that maybe the Mishnah was only talking about when Yom Kippur came out on a Sunday. It says in the Mishnah, B'chol Yom there were four. So Kashya. Therefore, Rav leaves this as a question that it's not clear what was the chiddush of Bar Kapara when he said Afilu b'Shabbos. But now the Gemara says this thing is not so pashut. The pligid, the Rav Huna, but this argues on what Rav Huna said. Because what did Rav Huna say? Chilasai daiche. Making the fire for the beginning of the carbon. To start off the carbon, that it's daiche. But saifai, for the leftovers of a carbon, it's not going to be Deiche Shabbos. In other words, from the leftovers from the day before, it's not going to be Deiche Shabbos. Rashi here, if you look in Rashi Tchilase in Seifa, okay, we'll see soon in the Hemshech of the Rashi what it refers to. But the point is, until now, the Gemara was saying simply that it's Pashit, that the Pshat in our Mishnah is that from the day before, you have the leftovers, Shabbos morning, so you can make the fire Shabbos morning, not only for the new karbanis that have to be brought Shabbos morning, but also for the leftovers, which the Gemara calls seifai, the leftovers from the day before. But Rav Huna says, no, the new karbanis Shabbos morning gets deiche, but not the seifai, not the leftovers from the day before. But now the Gemara is going to bring this statement of Rav Huna, and we'll see there's two ways how to learn what Rav Huna said, and not necessarily is he arguing with what we said until here. So Gufa, here's what Rav Huna said. Rav Huna, Tamid, so the carbon Tamid, Chilasai, the beginning of a new carbon, Deiche, that pushes off. Saifai, but to burn the leftovers, the end of it, Eine Deiche. That does not push off. Now, what was he referring to? My Eine Deiche. When he said that it is Deiche, it's not Deiche, was he talking about Shabbos? Whether it pushes off Shabbos to make a fire on Shabbos, or not necessarily. Gemara brings two opinions. Rav Chisda Amar, what he meant to say is Deiches HaShabbos, the Eine Deiches HaTumah, that he was only making a distinction regarding tumah. What he was saying was that when we know the halacha that a carbon sibur is doichet tumah, right? So that halacha that a carbon sibur is doichet tumah is only the beginning of the carbon, not the conclusion to finish off burning the carbon. That's what he was talking about. But Shabbos, it is doichet. Doiches a Shabbos. It will be Doiches Shabbos in the beginning of the carbon, the end of the carbon. The only distinction he was making was regarding Tumah. That's the way Rav Chisda understood what Rav Huna said. Verave, or other Gersers, Verabba Omar, Rabbi says, Doiches a Tumah. Tumah, definitely Doiches. Whether the beginning of the carbon, whether the end of the carbon, we're Doiches the Tumah, if it's a carbon sibur. Ve'ein Doiches es a Shabbos. And it's not going to be Doiches Shabbos, only the beginning of a new carbon is Doiches Shabbos, the Shabbos carbon, but not the leftovers from the day before. Okay, so if you look into Rashi here, the last Rashi says, two pshatim exactly what this means, the beginning and the end. The first pshat Rashi says, the end of the carbon is just the burning of the fats. So the only thing that's doiche will be the shchita and then the zrika of the blood, that's doiche the carbon. But burning the fats, that's not doiche the carbon. Another pshat Rashi says, which fits more with what the Gemara was saying Tiller, that even the burning of the pieces and the fats is also deiche. Soifai means the leftovers. The leftovers the next morning. That's what's not deiche. You have the leftovers from the previous day. Yeah, the leftovers of the Evarim on the Mizbech from the previous day. So Rashi brings both of these pshatim, and Rashi says, Harisha nire be'einai. Okay, let's go back into the Gemara now. The Gemara will explain this machlekes. So the Gemara amalei Abaye l'Rabbe, so Abaye said to Rabbe, I have a question on how you understood what Rav Huna was saying, and I also don't understand how Rav Chisda understood what Rav Huna was saying. Why? Because what's the source that tumah is doiche by its carbon sibur with doiche the tumah? Because it says b'mayadai, that has to be brought in its time, so it's doiche tumah. That's the limud. Va'afilu b'tumah. So Shabbos has the same source, Nami, b'mayadai v'afilu b'Shabbos, that we learn it out from b'mayadai saying that it can be brought even on Shabbos. So in other words, what he's asking is, what's the difference? Why are you saying that regarding, Rabbi was saying that regarding Tumah, it's doich everything, whether the beginning of the carbon, whether the end of the carbon. Regarding Shabbos, it's going to be doich only the beginning, but not the ending of the carbon. They both have the same source. Well, Rav Chisda, and according to Rav Chisda, Kasha, I have the same question, but in the reverse. Regarding Shabbos, it says b'mayadai, so you allow any part of the carbon to be done even on Shabbos, even the end of it. Tumanami b'mayadai. But regarding Tumah, it also says b'mayadai v'afilu b'tumah. And you learn it out also to say that it can be done Tumah. So what's the difference in the beginning and the end? So yeah, basically the same question on Rav Chisda and Rabba. Why should we make any distinction between Shabbos and Tumah? So Rabba answers Abaye and explains, the question you're asking is not a question on my opinion, and it's not a question on Rav Chisda's opinion. And here he's going to give a svara to make a distinction between Tumah and Shabbos according to both opinions. According to my opinion, it's not a question, and the difference is as follows. Because really, we treat the end of the carbon like the beginning of the carbon. So therefore, Tumah the tchilase bar mitche. When it comes to Tumah, the beginning of the carbon was allowed to be pushed off if there was all the kainim were tameh, and it's a carbon sibur. So the beginning of the carbon pushes off Tumah. So therefore, bar mitche Tumah pushes off the Tumah. So seifenami dochi. So therefore, in the end of the carbon as well, that's also a part of the carbon that pushes off Tumah. I compared the beginning to the end. Now, Shabbos, however, did chilosoi lavra mitche. If you're talking about a carbon that was brought on Friday, so that carbon does not push off Shabbos. Rashi explains what that means is, let's say the afternoon, the carbon that's brought by the Talmud Shel Bein Arbaim, Friday afternoon. If you got very delayed with this carbon and you want to do the zrika of the dam after Shkia already, after Shabbos. So the dam is possible. You can't do the zrika of the dam after Shkia. It has to be done by day. This is a carbon that specifically must be done on Friday and not on Shabbos. So since the beginning of the carbon does not push off Shabbos, so therefore Seifinami Leidochi. So therefore the ending of the carbon, the next morning, if there's leftovers, it's not going to be Deicha Shabbos. So the basis of Rabba's opinion is, I always compare the beginning to the end. So therefore, by Tumah, the whole thing is Deicha Shabbos. By Shabbos, since we see that this carbon has to be brought the day before, the next morning it's not Deicha. Rav Chisda like Kashya, according to Rav Chisda, it's not a question because he holds the opposite, and he says as follows: Soifai kitchilosai lesle. He does not hold of this concept that we compare the end of the carbon to the beginning of the carbon. So now, what's the difference between Shabbos and Tumah? Shabbos the hutra hi betzibur. When it comes to Shabbos, that's hutra. That's completely permitted to be done betzibur. Every single Shabbos, you bring the carbon tamid, the carbon musaf with no issues. It's not like you have to push off Shabbos for it. The Torah L'chatchila says to do it this way. It's totally permitted. So therefore, because by Shabbos it's hutra, so seifei nami dachi tumah. So therefore, I say even regarding the end, seifei nami dachi. So the ending of the carbon will also push off on Shabbos as well. Because on Shabbos morning, the Torah is saying that it's completely mutter to do it. There's no issue whatsoever. However, Tumah, the D'chuya b'tzibur, when it comes to Tumah is only D'chuya. Tumah is not something which the Torah says it should be done this way on a weekly basis always. Tumah is something, if it happens that a Kayan is Tameh, so then we have no choice. We can't find anyone else. So we push off the Isser of Tumah. We push off, and we're allowed to do it. It's like it's with Rashi says B'kaishi hutra. With difficulty we push it off. We had this whole discussion once in the Gemara, hutra versus tchuya. So here the Gemara is making a distinction. Regarding Shabbos, it's totally mutter. Regarding the Tumah, it's only the tchuya. It's only pushed off b'tzibur. So therefore, tchilasai, the iker kapara dachi, the beginning of the carbon, that's the main part of the kapara, the zrika of the dam. So therefore, that pushes off. Soifai, the lav ikka kapara loidachi. The ending of the carbon, burning the fats on the mizbeach, or according to another pshat of Rashi, before the leftover fats the next morning. So that's something which is the end. It's not the main kapara, so therefore that doesn't push it off, because the whole thing of pushing it off by tumah is with difficulty. It's not hutter lechatchila. Okay, now the Gemara comes back to the original discussion here regarding the fires of the mizbeach. One of the things that it says in the Torah regarding the fires of the Mizbeach is Eisha Mizbeach tukat boi loy sichbe. You're not allowed to extinguish the flame of the fire in the Mizbeach. If someone comes and puts out the fire in the Mizbeach, he's over on a lav. You're not allowed to put out the fire. So that's Pashut. But here the Gemara is going to ask a question or bring a machlokes regarding a certain case whether you're over on this lav. So Itme, we learned the following argument. Amachabe Eish machta u'menayre. You extinguish the fire, but not on the Mizbeach itself. You extinguish the fire of the Mizbeach once you took that fire and put it into the shovel to take it for the ketayres. Or you extinguished it from the vessel that you took the fire to bring it to the menayre. So are you going to be over on this lav? Abaya Omar Chayiv. Abaya says yes, even though it's not on Mamish on the Mizbeach anymore, you're still Chayiv. Lo yisichbeh. Rava says Potter. Rava says it's not on the Mizbeach anymore, so you're going to be Potter. So now the Gemara explains in what circumstance their machlokes is. The kav ye beroisha shel Mizbeach, if you have this pan or this vessel that you're holding the fire to take to the ketayres or to the menayre, but you're still on top of the Mizbeach. The kula amalei plig de chayiv. Everybody would agree that you're still going to be chayiv because you're ala Mizbeach. Eish tomet tukat ala Mizbeach, you're still there on top of the Mizbeach. Kipligi, when is the argument? The achse ya'ara, that he already went down from the Mizbeach onto the ground of the Azara. And then the kavye. Over there, he extinguished the fire. Abaya Omar chayiv. So here, Abaya says, you're still going to be chayiv. Eish ha-Mizbeach hu. Because this is still the fire of the Mizbeach. You're not on the Mizbeach, but it's the fire of the Mizbeach. Rava Alma Potter, but Rava says you'll be Potter. Kiven the nitka. Once you removed it of the Mizbeach, and now you went off the Mizbeach, you're on the ground, so over here you're going to be Potter. So it's not part of the Mizbeach anymore. Okay, so now the Gemara asks a question on this. Elo, hodom Rav Nachman Amar Rabbi Baravua, hamayrid gacheles meyala Mizbeach. A person took off a coal from the Mizbeach. So here we're not talking about a person that took it off for the Menayre or for the Ketayre. Stam, a person took off a coal from the Mizbeach. And the kibbah, he extinguishes the coal. Chayiv, you chayiv for extinguishing a fire from the Mizbeach. So what do you see over here? He's not on top of the Mizbeach anymore. He's on the bottom of the ground. And he extinguished the coal, he's going to be chayiv. So come on, according to who did Rav Nachman say this? In the name of Rabbi Baravua. Ka'abaya, is he saying this only according to Abaya that says that you're chayiv for extinguishing the fire in the Mizbeach even if you're on the ground? So the Gemara says, no, this case is different. In that case, even Rava would agree that you'll be chayiv. Why? You didn't separate it, you didn't take it off of the mizbeach for the purpose of another mitzvah. You just you went, you took it off from the mizbeach, and you extinguished the fire. So therefore, there you're over the lav. You didn't separate it for a different purpose. But once you separate it for another mitzvah, the reason why it's separated from the mizbeach is not only because of the location, because you took it off the mizbeach, but because you're going to use it for a different mitzvah. That's the case where Rava said that you're not going to be over anymore. But if you take off a coal from the mizbeach, then everybody would agree that if you extinguish it, you're going to be chayiv, even though you're not on the mizbeach anymore. Here's the case where there's the Taisus. I mentioned it before when we were learning the Gemara. There was the Gemara before that was speaking about when you shovel, the Kaim would shovel out with a big shovel of, let's say, 4 kav, then he would pour it over into another shovel that only had, let's say, 3 or less kav, and it would spill over on the ground. And when it would spill over, what would they do with what would spill over? So Rashi says they would take those coals and they would push it into the water, the stream of water that passed through. So Taisva says that according to our Gemara, over here it says that according to Abaya, even on the ground, even if you're not on the Mizbeach, if you put it into the stream, you're extinguishing a fire from the Mizbeach. You're not allowed to extinguish the fire from the Mizbeach. How could you do such a thing? So therefore Taisus over here says that the pshat in the Gemara before is that he did not put it into the stream of water. They just put it in a certain location, in an amma, certain location over there, but they did not put it into the stream going out. That's why Taisus argues with Rashi. It's a long Taisus here. It brings different pshatim about the Sinyan. Okay, let's go back into the Gemara.
So much as an amma on the mizbeach.
Amma, right, near the Mizbeach where they had no. But here it's talking about on the near the Mizbeach on the bottom, yeah. Ikadamri, another version of this machlokes between Abaya and Rava. The ach se'ara, if he took off with the pan or for the menorah. So and he's already on the ground, on the azara, the kavye, and there he extinguished the fire. The kula amalei pligi, the potter. Everybody would agree that it's potter because you're already off of the Mizbeach. Kipligi, when is their argument? The kavya b'roishisham mizbeach. When you're on top of the mizbeach and you have it now in your pan or in your vessel to take for the menorah, there is the argument if you'd be chayiv or not. Abaya Omar chayiv eisha mizbeachud. This is the fire of the mizbeach. You're still on top of the mizbeach. Rava Omar potter, but Rava says you'll be potter. Even the nitka, even though you're still on top of the mizbeach, but you took it out of the mizbeach and now it's in the pan. It's not anymore on the mizbeach itself, so you're going to be potter. So on this again, the Gemara asks, so what did he say? You took a coal off the mizbeach, now you're on the bottom of the mizbeach, you extinguish that coal, chayiv, you'll still be chayiv. So according to this version, the question is, Kaman, according to who is that? We just said that everybody agrees that if it's on the ground, you'll be potter. So who is he saying this according to? So again, the Gemara explains, in that case of Rabbi Baravua, you took it off the fire of the Mizbeach, not for any purpose of a mitzvah. So over there, everybody agrees you'll be chayev. Over here, you took it off for the purpose of a mitzvah. That's what separates it from the Mizbeach, and therefore you're going to be potter for the Isra of Leisichbet to not extinguish the fire. Hadron Allah Torah Bakalfis. Conclusion of the 4th Pedic of Masechta Yoma.